Welcome once again to today's special coverage of the 2022 parliamentary elections in the state of Kuwait, coming to you live from the Ministry of Information News Studio to bring you the latest update of this democratic celebration.
Absolutely. All eligible voters are heading to the polls today in the country's 5 constituencies to elect members of parliament for the 17th legislative term of the National Assembly. Today is a true reflection of democracy, with the right to vote and elect members of the National Assembly is an exercised and guaranteed right by the Kuwaiti Constitution. Today is also a true reflection of the patriotism and unity where people come together for the greater good of the country.
That's right. Also, the government bodies have been working tirelessly to make this electoral process run smoothly, easily, and most importantly, with full transparency.
Absolutely, Lulwa. The role is without a doubt a completion to the term democratic celebration. That is why the Ministry of Information has spearheaded the media coverage campaign of the 2022 National Assembly under the theme Correcting the Path to showcase Kuwait's true democratic life.
That's right. And today we will shed light on the vital role of Kuwaiti women and her journey in the political arena of the state, in addition to her participation in the election process from voting to candidacy to representation in the National Assembly. But first, here's a special report regarding the National Assembly elections.
The parliamentary elections are an important aspect of Kuwait's political fabric, as it determines who will shape Kuwait's legislative branch. According to the Kuwaiti Constitution, the Parliament is the legislative branch that is in charge of proposing new laws. The Kuwait Parliament, a unicameral system, is the single legislative branch in Kuwait. The Parliament has a maximum of 4-year term, made up of 4 sessions, and sometimes a 5th closing session if the Parliament completes its 4 years. The legislative branch is made up of 50 MPs that are elected by the Kuwaiti people, and up to an additional 15 appointed ministers who make up the government. Of the 50 MPs, one is elected as Speaker of the Parliament and another as Deputy during the opening session of the new term. Also during the first session, the members vote on who joins which committee, and if the number of candidates are the same as the number of committee members, then they automatically become a member, and each MP is allowed to join a maximum of 2 committees. While there are no specific requirements to join a committee, an MP chooses a committee depending on his background, according to Article 43 of the Parliament's Procedure Law. There are 10 permanent committees in the Parliament, most of which have 5 members, except the Legislative, Public Utilities, Budget and Financial and Economic Committee, who have 7 members. Each committee has a head who is elected by the committee during the first session. There are also temporary committees that are suggested and decided on at the beginning of every session. For example, the Women and Family Committee is a temporary committee, and its responsibilities are determined at the beginning of every session. Ministers in the National Assembly enjoy the same privileges as MPs, as they get to vote on laws once presented on the floor of Parliament, and vote during the opening session for committee members and the Speaker of Parliament. Concerning new laws, there are several procedures that are done before a law can be passed by Parliament. First of which, the proposed draft is suggested in front of Parliament. Then it goes to the Parliamentary Preparations Department to help write the wording and the legal terminologies. Once they are done, they transfer it to the Legislative Committee, where they determine whether it is constitutional. If it is approved, then they return it to the Parliament, and the Parliament directly refers it to the respective committee. As each committee discusses the proposed law, according to Article 50 of the Parliament's Procedural Law, ministers may attend committee sessions when a matter related to their ministry is being discussed. For a proposed law to be made final by the committee, the majority of the committee members need to approve it. Once the law is finalized, it is sent along with the government's comments and the report from the Legislative Committee to the floor of the Parliament for the first deliberation. After the first deliberation, the members of Parliament get a chance to propose amendments to the law. It is then referred to the committee once again for final approval, before it is presented again to the floor for a second deliberation vote. In order for a vote to take place, a simple majority of the 65 members need to be present. Regarding Kuwait's electoral districts, Kuwait is divided into 5 constituencies. Thus, the 10 candidates that get the highest number of votes in their electoral district are elected to Parliament. On the 16th of May 2005, Parliament approved women's right to vote, and the decision raised Kuwait's eligible voter population from 139,000 to about 339,000. In the parliamentary elections on May 16, 2009, 16 female candidates contested for 50 seats for a 4-year term, with 4 female candidates winning their seats and becoming Kuwait's first female lawmakers.
National Assembly Elections 2022, a constitutional entitlement and a national duty for preserving democratic gains and correcting the course. The people are the ones who choose. They are the ones who redraw the political scene. A national phase in which everyone unites for the sake of the homeland. National Assembly Elections 2022, correcting the course.
And ladies and gentlemen, please let's go to the other side of the studio with my colleague Abderrahim to take a tour of the 5 constituencies with our correspondents.
Thank you, Lulwa. If you're just joining us today, this is a special live coverage of the 2022 National Assembly election, where we bring you the latest update on the process. Throughout this broadcast, we will give you live updates from our correspondents who are on location across the 5 constituencies to bring us a first-hand look on the voting process, the governmental efforts and voters' participation. If we can go first to the 2nd constituency where we have Bashar Sadiq. Bashar, can you tell us about the women's participation from the Ministry of Health in your polling station?
Yes, I can explain that the women in the Ministry of Health currently working at this school in the 2nd constituency, Ma'an bin Zaida, a middle school for boys, are clearly located at the entrance of the school and are being very helpful, even handing out water, and are willing to attend to any voters that are having any kind of medical issue. I would also like to add that the Minister of Interior has female officers on duty as well.
Okay, thank you, Bashar. Let's go to the 3rd constituency where we have Iman Ramadan. Iman, if you can tell me about the female judges present for the first time in supervising the election.
Yes, good evening, Abderrahim. So we're now located at the 3rd constituency, specifically at Rawda Female High School. Of course, it's quite outstanding to see their presence and their discipline in handling while supervising the parliamentary elections, especially down in each constituency. As we know, it's quite challenging for everyone. We have exerted their efforts while handling things quite professionally down here. This is a huge change, of course, for women at this moment of time in making their presence quite known, and not only for the judges, but also for the governmental parties, which are handling these situations quite well right here.
Okay, Iman, let's go to the 4th constituency where we have Shamail Dehani. Shamail, what is the latest update at your end? And we're interested to know about the volunteers who are working at the polling station, especially women volunteers and their roles. Technical difficulties. Let's try the 5th constituency. Okay, we'll come back to our correspondence once we get the line back on. As for now, let's take a quick break and we'll see you soon.
بسم الله العلي القدير يفتتح الآن أعمال المجلس التأسيسي لدولة الكويت المستقلة.
إننا نعيش الآن في بلادنا نهضة شاملة لم يسبق لها مثيل.
إنني من على هذا المنبر أوجه بالنيابة عنكم تحية وتقدير واحترام لأهلنا في الكويت
حتى نواصل العمل الذي لا يتوقف لخدمة الكويت العزيزة.
لقد تأكدت بأنني من يحمي الدستور ولن أسمح بالمساس به.
مخلصين للعمل الجاد لخير ورفعة الكويت وأهلها الأوفياء.
اختيار القوي الأمين الذي يضع مصلحة الكويت وشعبها فوق كل اعتبار.
National Assembly Elections 2022, a constitutional entitlement and a national duty for preserving democratic gains and correcting the course. The people are the ones who choose. They are the ones who redraw the political scene. A national phase in which everyone unites for the sake of the homeland. National Assembly Elections 2022, correcting the course. A constitutional entitlement and a national duty for preserving democratic gains and correcting the course. The people are the ones who choose. They are the ones who redraw the political scene. A national phase in which everyone unites for the sake of the homeland. National Assembly Elections 2022, correcting the course.
We're back with you, covering the 5 constituency live with our correspondents. If we can go to the 4th constituency, we have Shamail Dehani again. Shamail, what is the latest at your end? And we are interested to know more about the volunteers, women volunteers, and their roles during this process.
Reporting from the 4th constituency, Farwania government, specifically in Ardiya area, Al Khair school, we have extensively ballot boxes are being filled, and a lot of voters are coming right now. We can say approximately the ratio is getting beyond 50%. And we have, of course, the efforts are exerted by the Ministry of Interior and Kuwait civil society.
Thank you, Shamail. Shamail, you're still with us. Do you know any of the volunteers from which organization are they volunteering from? From the Ministry of Interior or other volunteers from the public? We'll try to take the 5th constituency. Yes, Mansour Mtawa is in the 5th constituency. Mansour, what is the efforts exerted by female members of the Ministry of Interior at your polling station?
Yes, female officers are at the Ministry of Interior are mainly
constituencies around Kuwait. They are responsible for organizing and securing the voting procedure and answering any questions regarding their selections. Women also play an important role in other governmental entities such as Ministry of Health, Ministry of
other governmental entities such as Ministry of Health, Ministry of Information, and other volunteering groups. So thanks to their efforts, and we hope to see more women candidates represent Kuwaiti citizens in the 2022 National Assembly.
First constituency where we have Maryam Al-Dhwayhi. Maryam, what can you tell us about the female presence at your polling station?
Abdurrahim, the female presence in the 2022 elections is extremely strong, as we have the highest weights for voters and candidates. We have 470,812 female voters and over 20 female candidates, the highest number since 2009 when they were granted their political rights to run for the elections and to vote. Also today we have judges, prosecutors and female police officers. Also, in addition, joining them volunteers and media personnel from the Ministry of Information to cover the elections. Women are considered a major force in deciding the winners in the elections to guarantee a seat, and if not a seat, also a popularity. Women today are leading the elections and running to each other to support each other in their demands and needs in the future plans for Kuwait.
Well, there you have it, folks. We've covered the 5 constituencies with our correspondents. We'll keep checking back with them for more updates later on. But now we go back to the studios with our colleague Lulwa for more.
بسم الله العلي القدير يفتتح الآن أعمال المجلس التأسيسي لدولة الكويت المستقلة.
إننا نعيش الآن في بلادنا نهضة شاملة لم يسبق لها مثيل.
إنني من على هذا المنبر أوجه بالنيابة عنكم تحية وتقدير واحترام لأهلنا في الكويت
حتى نواصل العمل الذي لا يتوقف لخدمة الكويت العزيزة.
لقد أكدت بأنني من يحمي الدستور ولن أسمح بالمساس به.
مخلصين للعمل الجاد لخير ورفعة الكويت وأهلها الأوفياء.
اختيار القوي الأمين الذي يضع مصلحة الكويت وشعبها فوق كل اعتبار.
As we delve into the latest on today's voting process, we have here with us our guest, Dr. Haneen Al-Ghabra. She's the Associate Professor of Communication and Cultural Studies. Good afternoon, Dr. Haneen. How are you today?
Thank you for having me.
It's very glad to be able to have you here to talk to us. I'd like to ask you, beginning with the candidates running for the National Assembly elections 2022, who began, they began on the 29th of August, submitting their papers to the Interior Ministry, Elections Affairs Department until September 7th. With the female candidates reaching 22 women so far for the National Assembly elections, how do you view such a figure representing the return of women and their contribution to the political arena?
I think it's great because women are demanding political participation, and we're in need of emancipation, not just in Kuwait but worldwide in general. And so there's a lack that we need, if that makes sense. But basically, women are trying to get into parliament. They're trying to occupy leadership roles, and I feel like the women that are running, I respect them so much for a very good reason, is that these women are running in a one-vote electoral system, which means that the chances of them winning are very slim. And so I respect them for, even if they don't enter the parliament, because I only see maybe one max if we get any into parliament, women getting in. But I feel like if the fact that they're running is they're making a statement as well, right? So it's not just only about getting into parliament, but it's also about making a statement, because it's very hard for us to get in with the one vote system. And so I really think that this is a courageous move.
All right, with the political rights of women witnessed the long march spanning over time, there have been repeated demands for women's participation in the political life, accompanied in the beginning of the constitutional era. Can you just shed some light with regards to the history of the political contributions of women?
So women historically have been contributing to the country in general. So even like in the 50s, there was a protest where a bunch of women came out and burned their abayas. In the 60s, you had an association developed, I think it was called the Family or Women's Family Association, but then you had the Women's Cultural Society. After that, we had Nadi al-Fatat. So you had, which is a national sports association, and so you have all these associations that helped with you know, starting or fighting for the emancipation of women. And then in the 90s, which is really overlooked, especially in the Gulf War, women had a key role in fighting the Iraqi occupation, which I think is, you know, not really highlighted as much. And so throughout, you know, the women that were in parliament, women that have occupied leadership positions, whether it's ministry or whether it's anywhere. And so you're even seeing more women. I mean, I was surprised today when I walked into the studio and I found a whole camera crew of women, and it actually brought joy, you know? And so all these different positions women are starting to fill in. But the problem is we also don't want to be tokenized. So having that one woman in between 10 men, and so we need it to be more of a, you know, 50-50 equal participation. But women have historically, worldwide, been fighting for their political rights.
Right. If you talk about women, I mean, women have traditionally in Kuwait been able to teach, to be able to do more. So that is, we're going back before independence. So women have been a cornerstone of our society, and we've just evolved from there, and we are able to achieve more.
That's important, because I think if you're evolving, you need to evolve with more participation. So I think that's a very important point. And so, well, with 22 women we've got running, how do you think it could go? Do you think women would primarily vote for women, or do we have a larger group of men who think the women are able to do a great job and will? That's an important question, and I think we're not there yet, because the problem is we're in a patriarchal society, right? And that's worldwide. It manifests differently from country to country, depending on where you are. But so if we have this thinking that men are better than women, right? And it doesn't mean that all men or all women think like that. But you have a lot of women. We're talking about women now, because we already know that there are a lot of men that might think like that, but a lot of women that are they're embodying and internalizing this patriarchy. So they're not thinking, I'm going to go vote for a woman, or I need to form alliances. So the problem is, for the core fundamental issue is we don't have alliances. So women are not, you know, men actually have this that we don't have. There's no alliances between us. And so if we can't form alliances, how are we going to get into these positions? How are we even going to form allyship with men? So first it begins with women forming alliances within themselves, right? Because we're all fragmented right now. And a lot of women aren't, you know, you see that a lot, like, especially with the older, like, I think with the newer generation, it's much more better, but you see that especially with like the mothers sometimes, like they're internalizing this patriarchy. You know, my son is better than my daughter. Like, these narratives are a reflection of a huge societal problem that is gonna hinder women from becoming or getting into any political position or having any leadership role.
What I would like to ask is, during the several stages, women have faced several stages where they've met determination with a very clear path of equality. And those efforts were crowned with success on the 16th of May 2005, when the National Assembly passed a law enabling women to participate in the political candidacy and election. Can you delve into the advantages of women seizing this right, and how does it reflect in the country's 2035 vision?
I remember this was a victorious day. I mean, I still remember the day so clearly, because women were protesting from years before that, especially in 2004. And in 2005, and you know, even the Emir of Kuwait in 1999, he was very supportive of this.
Yes.
So here we have our, you know, right to vote in 2005. And then now we have the vision, right? And Kuwait's vision is very similar to the UN. There's some similarities with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So the UN Sustainable Development Goals, they want clean energy, clean water, environmental concerns, gender concerns, inequality. That's two, where you know, racism and sexism, basically, right? So gender and race. But and Kuwait's development goal is to be a financial hub and to attract investors. So you're looking at a democracy. A democracy is never fixated. So a democracy can never evolve, ever, if it's hindering half of its citizens. So if we have women participating equally, then our democracy will actually grow. Because a democracy is a combination of the political system, you know, the education system, the laws, the legal, the media. Everything comes together, religion, culture, traditions. So if we're not evolving, so what happens is we have this democracy, but we're not evolving. So it's almost like a partially functioning democracy. So if we don't have women with, you know, being participating equally, we're not going to be able to be that, to even fulfill the 2035 vision.
All right. Before we continue with our guest, Dr. Haneen, let's take a look at the role of women in Kuwaiti society, which is vital in order to develop societal, economic and political aspects of the country. Over the years, women have held many leadership positions, with the most recent being the appointment of 8 female judges for the first time in the country's history. More in the following report.
The female presence and women participation in the country's achievements has gone from the individual level into a new era of global recognition, with working in charitable organizations and other international associations. The support of the state of Kuwait's leadership to women's rights was shown on May 16, 2005, when women obtained their political rights to be nominated and elected and to assume many leadership positions. The most recent of which was in June of 2020 by appointing 8 women as judges for the first time in the history of Kuwait. On May 16, 2005, the National Assembly approved granting women the right to nominate and vote, with a majority represented in the support of 35 members, opening the door for women to run for candidacy and vote. In 2006's National Assembly elections, although no female candidate won, their participation for the first time was considered a victory by all standards. On June 29, 2006, the percentage of women's participation in the elections was about 35%, which was excellent considering it was the first experience of women's participation in the elections, with 5 female candidates going on to win the title of the first female candidate to participate in Kuwait's parliamentary elections in the history of the country. In 2008's parliamentary elections, the long struggle of Kuwaiti women for parliamentary representation came to fruition when 27 of the 275 candidates were women, while in the parliamentary elections of May 2009, the presence of Kuwaiti women in the National Assembly culminated with remarkable success when 16 female candidates contested for 50 seats for a 4-year term, with 4 female candidates winning their seats and becoming Kuwait's first female lawmakers. Their electoral success led to a new era in Kuwait's political history, in which women can finally be active participants and decision makers.
National Assembly Elections 2022, a constitutional entitlement and a national duty for preserving democratic gains and correcting the course. The people are the ones who choose. They are the ones who redraw the political scene. A national phase in which everyone unites for the sake of the homeland. National Assembly Elections 2022, correcting the course.
Well, going back to Dr. Haneen, our guest in the studio today. Dr. Haneen, I'd like to ask you, during this year's elections, there's a record number of women running to secure a place in the National Assembly. Now, can you tell us about the significant role of women in the elections and how important it is to have women representatives during this National Assembly?
I think it's very important because, first of all, women are more likely to tackle women's issues. Whether it's violence or abuse or education or childcare or whatever it is. But I think another important point is that women need to vote for women. Okay. And everyone needs, I mean, we need to vote for more women, but I think there's a significant role because if you look at research, and this is, you know, like solid research from the UN, from other research institutes, women are more likely when they're in parliament, they're more likely to focus on peace development, peace initiatives, on development, economic development, women's issues. So you have like a plethora of issues that women are good at. So they add to the table.
They bring more pluses to the table.
Yes.
Yeah. Since we spoke of women's role as representatives and shed some history on her journey in the political life, how about the importance of today's female voters? Would you advise this important segment of Kuwait's society to do for during today's democratic manifestation, hence the National Assembly?
Yeah, so it goes back to the question you asked me earlier, is how do we get women to form allyship, right? And so we answered that, but so then it becomes, you know, like women need to vote. And whether they're voting for men or for women, but we need to get more women on the table. And so I think it's really significant. And I think this question is important because they need to go out. First of all, they need to go out and vote.
All right.
Second, we need to bring in good female candidates, right? Because let's also be honest that not all female candidates, like all male candidates, are not going to be as effective once they get into parliament. So what kind of women do we need to get into the parliament that are women that have the country at their in the center fold, right?
Correct. Yeah.
The economy, development, human rights issues, all these different avenues, education, etc. So I think we need to look at it as a whole picture too.
All right. Just before we carry on with the updates, let's take a break, and we'll be right back.
National Assembly Elections 2022, a constitutional entitlement and a national duty for preserving democratic gains and correcting the course. The people are the ones who choose. They are the ones who redraw the political scene. A national phase in which everyone unites for the sake of the homeland. National Assembly Elections 2022, correcting the course.
And we're back with our guest, Dr. Haneen Al-Ghabra. Dr. Haneen, can you tell us your view about the flow of female voters through the years in comparison to this year in particular?
Well, I think the flow has increased significantly, and I think that's a really, really good thing. Because women are finally realizing that they have rights, right?
Okay.
And I think a lot of women, and we saw this in these political campaigns, that some women were frustrated from even older parliamentary members that their needs were not met. So women are frustrated, and so they're going out to vote. So A, it's frustration. B, they want their needs met. It's emancipation at the end of the day. And so I think that's a good thing, right? Because women are also occupying more managerial work roles, leadership roles, and so they want more, right? They just want a seat at the table, just want to be included.
Okay, just to address some of the issues. Can you tell us in detail the capabilities of the National Assembly among other bodies in Kuwait in terms of empowering women in Kuwait?
I think it really depends who you have in the National Assembly. I think there have been times where we feel disempowered by the NA, and there's times where women have felt empowered. And I think it goes back to like, who do we have in parliament, right? And who has women's issues at stake.
Okay. Well, before we continue more with our interview, if you'd excuse, we'd like to go to my colleague Abdul Rahim for the next report. Abdul Rahim.
Thank you, Lulwa. The Kuwait leadership has always been keen on the issue of empowering women in society, and it was evident in the historic decision in 2005 that granted women the right to vote and stand for election. One of the pillars of Kuwait Vision 2035 is the empowerment of women, and it will be an important aspect in further developing the important role of women in society. Here's more.
Kuwait granted women their full political rights to vote, nominate, and assume leadership positions in order to establish their constitutional and political rights. Women in Kuwait have proven through a history full of achievement their leading and active role in the development process in the country, in various fields of public affairs, society, the economy, and politics. Despite early setbacks and difficulties, the success of Kuwaiti women earned them leadership roles and precedence at the Gulf level. Women in Kuwait occupy many leadership positions, becoming ministers and deputy ministers, university directors, ambassadors, and elected members of the National Assembly. The Kuwaiti leadership's first steps towards enabling women to occupy their rightful place on the country's work and development map began when the Council of Ministers announced in June 2005 the selection of engineer Fatima Saoud al-Sabah and engineer Fawziyah Muhammad al-Bahr for membership on the Municipal Council. Kuwaiti women have long been recognized as pioneers with a powerful voice in social, political, intellectual, and cultural arenas throughout the country's history. Due to the success in appointing female judges for the first time in Kuwait's history, more women are now pursuing careers as public prosecutors, and more lawyers are emerging from their ranks. The full economic empowerment of women has played a major role in the economic growth that continues to be witnessed in the country. On October 1st, 2018, the General Secretariat of the Supreme Council for Planning and Development, the Women's Research and Study Center at Kuwait University, the United Nations Development Program, UN Women, came together to launch the first of its kind global initiative in the GCC, the Women's Empowerment Principles, or the WEP. The WEPs are an integrated framework developed by UN Women and the UN Global Compact in 2010 and offer 7 steps to guide businesses on how to promote gender equality and empower women in the workplace, marketplace, and community. To this day, Kuwaiti women continue to leave their positive mark on the development of the country, and through their will and determination in various fields, they continue to prove their vital role in society.
بسم الله العلي القدير يفتتح الآن أعمال المجلس التأسيسي لدولة الكويت المستقلة.
إننا نعيش الآن في بلادنا نهضة شاملة لم يسبق لها مثيل.
إنني من على هذا المنبر أوجه بالنيابة عنكم تحية وتقدير واحترام لأهلنا في الكويت
حتى نواصل العمل الذي لا يتوقف لخدمة الكويت العزيزة.
لقد تأكدت بأنني من يحمي الدستور ولن أسمح بالمساس به.
مخلصين العمل الجاد لخير ورفعة الكويت وأهلها الأوفياء.
اختيار القوي الأمين الذي يضع مصلحة الكويت وشعبها فوق كل اعتبار.
And we are back with our guest here in the studio, Dr. Haneen Al-Ghabra. As we saw here in Kuwait, the leadership has been always empowered women and continues to empower them and look at it as a priority. And as the Kuwait Vision 2035, women will be pushed further towards achievements and developments. And in its role in society keeps getting greater and greater in this sense. Can you tell us how women in Kuwait paved the way for the future generation with the blessing of the leadership to innovate and become a vital pillar of Kuwait's future?
Well, you can see that ever through time, you know, from our great grandmothers down to our mothers and aunts and etc. But I think, you know, women have systematically increased their leadership roles and their political participation. And yes, they have been supported. And I think that what's really important is that women are finally occupying more positions. Sure. And so we see that, and we see that happening, especially recently. You know, with the 8 judges and more women ministers and more parliament members. We're hopeful that we're going to have even more. And so I think this is the positive aspect of it.
Well, you've been a great addition to this update, Doctor, and we've really enjoyed interviewing you and having a chat with you about everything that's been going on. We'd like to thank you for being here, Dr. Haneen Al-Ghabra. Is there anything you'd like to say before?
No, thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure having you and talking to you about things.
Yes, you too.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, that was Dr. Haneen Al-Ghabra, so thank you for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. Before we take a break, let's take a look at a survey concerning our discussion.
National Assembly Elections 2022, a constitutional